So when they bought their property in 1982, it's 34 years ago now. They signed up right away with the forest stewardship program. Basically pledging that they would never develop their land. Forest stewardship program eventually became Clean and Green. So I think most people will be familiar with the Clean and Green program. So,
right. Mm-hmm.
At any rate, as forest stewards, they obviously never wanted the forest to be developed. And then here comes Sunoco. Claiming eminent domain, which we can get into that in a few minutes if you like, because I think that's really where the heart of the issue is the claim for eminent domain.
Right.
But basically, Sunoco has come in and they offered them $100,000 for the 3-acre stretch that they cut through, but they don't want the money. They care about the forest, and it's a wetland, by the way, which that's a whole other issue in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they turned down the money, and they're still they're still trying to fight Sunoco in court, and that's a bit of a complex scenario as well, which I won't get into. But
right,
Sunoco is required to give them money for the land that they cut, and they created a $6,000 bond for them, which they've also refused. But $6,000 is really just
that's mere
drop in the
pittance.
bucket. I mean, that doesn't even cover the lumber.
Right.
So I mean, it's and part of the eminent domain clause is that is that people get just compensation for their land, and I hardly think that that's just compensation.
No. You know what? No. Here again, go back to the fact that the Gearharts, this was legacy land as far as I'm concerned. This is something they could pass on to generations. And so, if I decide I don't want somebody doing drilling on my property and I don't want to sell, I mean, what recourse do these people have? Let's get to the county level now. How could a judge, and what's the appeal process here? How could a judge actually allow Sunoco to do this, knowing the wishes of the family?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the Gearharts took Sunoco to court, obviously here in Huntingdon County,
right?
And their attorney said, made the point like, look, in order for Sunoco or any company to claim eminent domain, they have to be a public utility.
Right.
Now, in 2002, in a separate project, Sunoco was granted public utility status by the Pennsylvania Utility Commission.
Yeah. And
that was for a pipeline that supplied natural gas for Pennsylvanians. So, I mean, that's a bit different. Now, this project, it's a bit of a long story, but basically they reapplied for, public utility status. They were actually denied. They appealed the decision, and that went to a higher court. The higher court sent it down to the lower court again, and they were going to obviously lose the case, so they just dropped it entirely. So it was sort of up in the air, But regardless, it doesn't matter what the Pennsylvania Utilities Commission says. This is a multi-state pipeline.
Exactly. So this is not providing oil or gas for the people of Pennsylvania.
Well, yeah. I mean, according to Jeff Shields, the Sunoco spokesperson,
right?
He says, straight out, and he's been quoted so many times saying that most of the gas, nearly all the gas, is going to be shipped overseas. Basically, it goes to the highest bidder, and in this case, the gas is going mainly to Scotland and Norway specifically. So this gas is not staying in Pennsylvania. It's not benefiting Pennsylvanians.
Right.
And regardless, the legal issue here is whether they're a public utility and whether the gas is for public use. And they're citing that they were given public utility status in a case 14 years ago. Yeah. And it's a multi-state pipeline. The Pennsylvania Utility Commission doesn't have jurisdiction over Ohio and West Virginia, and they have not been, so therefore it's up to the federal federal government to deem them a public utility, which they don't have that claim.
Well, geographically, Rick, how How long is this pipeline? I know it goes across the Gearhart's property, but what's the connection and what's the how far does this line go?
So it goes from southeastern Ohio, through the northern panhandle tip of West Virginia, and all the way down to Delaware County to the Marcus Hook Refinery in southeastern Pennsylvania. It's an 8,000 miles. It's 8,000 miles of pipeline total. Because I think it sort of crisscrosses and backtracks and whatnot. So anyhow, it's 8,000 total miles of pipeline, and it goes through 2,700 private proproperties. Holy
mackerel.
Pretty staggering number.
Yeah.
And within those 2,700 properties are several farms, and, our friends, the Hollerens, who live east of here, they had, their maple, 80% of their maple sugar trees, which that's their business. They're a maple sugaring family.
Yeah.
80% of their maple trees were cut. And so they're finished. That's their livelihood, and that their business has just been completely destroyed.
Well, in some of these other instances, to the best of your knowledge, did these landowners appeal to the local courts or maybe the appellate courts?
Yep. Several people have taken Sunoco to court, and most of the judges have sided with Sunoco, despite the sort of staggering evidence against Sunoco actually being a public utility, and it's crazy to think that these small town judges can make big decisions like this. Now there is a lawyer I was just reading the other day. There is a lawyer in near Philadelphia who ruled against Sunoco. So I mean there are a few judges out there who were saying, hey, look, this is ridiculous. That the gas is not being used in Pennsylvania, and they're not a public utility.
Well, let me ask you this, Nick. Then you're a part of a grassroots group. Obviously, you guys have spurred from this whole incident with the Gearharts, who are closer to the Huntingdon County area. Give me kind of a makeup of who these people are. Are they just community people who say, hey, listen, enough is enough. We got to help these people out? I mean, who are they? That's
exactly right. I mean, we are, the embodiment of a grassroots organization. I mean, these, I have a good friend, Hannah Jeffrey, who is a peace and conflict study major at Juniata College. She's organized a protest, and several of her friends, to come out and support. But there are loads of people from across the community. I mean, there's ex-teachers, current teachers. There's actually a couple borough council members that have come out to the rallies, and it's people from across the board, and it's basically just a group of people that are just upset with the fact that big industry has just sort of walked in and taken people's land right from under their noses with basically what we think is no legal jurisdiction.
Right.
And it seems to be a case of big industry versus the people, and I think people are just sick of it. Yeah, I wonder if we were to sit down with George Zanic, the judge in Huntingdon County, if he would actually tell us what his mind thought was in this local jurisdiction that he cowtailed to a large corporation like Sunoco. Have you heard any buzz on anybody who's been able to talk to George about this situation? And, Yeah, I mean, I've just heard, through the rumor mill that he's been under a lot of pressure from Sunoco, but I don't know that. I don't know that for a fact. Well, you would think that he would be a homer. He would be a guy who would basically stand up for the local constituents and say, not in my county, and exactly. That's, and a lot of people have said that he is that he is that type of guy, and they're surprised that he made that type of decision. And, I would love to sit down with him and have a chat and, sort out why this decision was made. I mean, he obviously had a real choice in this situation. And then to get the sheriff's office involved, now it becomes more of a governmental, county-wide situation where these people are now fighting this individual family. And I can understand and I appreciate
the fact that you've gotten together with grassroots people and you're having these rallies. But having said that, is there an appeal that you could make to a higher court at this point?
Yeah, I mean, actually, the Gearhart and several other families have appealed the decisions, and the process for that is a bit lengthy.
Yeah.
And there's somehow some loophole in the whole legal system that has allowed for Sunoco to go in and cut trees, regardless of whether the whole issue has been sorted out or not. Right, I mean, there's still loads of these cases in a court of appeals, but the damage is done. The tree has been cut.
And not only that, but we're talking about affecting and impacting the lives of other people now. For instance, talking about the protests last week at the site, people being arrested. Now we're talking cost and fines for something that, quite frankly, could have been taken care of in the local courts by somebody just basically saying no. Now, here's what it appears to me, and you can agree or not agree. And I've met George before, and we've had discussions when he was a district attorney. So we kept it on a friendly basis. But, and I hate to even allude to this, but did somebody get paid off in this process? I mean, truly, did somebody get paid?
It begs that question, doesn't it? Because it seems so outrageous that that a decision like this would be made. And I mean, I'm not.
No, without regard to.
I'm not going to say either way. I mean, nobody really knows, but it seems fishy. I mean, it truly does. And
wow,
we're not really. And I want to take a step back here and make a point that these protests have been completely peaceful.
Yes, sir.
And
yes.
we're really just trying to get the message out there. That Sunoco is coming in and doing this kind of crap, and that. We're just trying to hope that people in future cases will stand up for their rights. 300,000 more miles of pipeline are slated to go in Pennsylvania in the next 10 years. That's a lot of pipeline, man. And so that means they're going to be coming into your backyard. Whether you like it or not. And if we don't stand up now, they're just going to keep taking.
Yeah, and obviously, and that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate and admire your efforts and the efforts of the grassroots folks, because it really is an awareness campaign. I don't really think, Nick, people truly understand that if that is allowed to happen to one person, it will be like a picket fence throughout Huntingdon County, which is rich in land and environment. You're talking about the wetlands. Now, let me ask you this. Are there any permits that Sunoco can show anybody that they've gone in and done the environmental study, in their due diligence, or that we're not harming the wetlands?
Well, they did have a surveying crew go in and noted that there is a wetland that goes right through where they cut.
Right.
They even put up wetland, quote unquote, wetland delineation signs and water crossing signs on the property. It's a well documented wetland. I mean, experts have been out there. It's on all the maps. And in order to cut a wetland or a wetland area, called a riparian zone, you have to have permits in order to cut that kind of sensitive ecosystem.
Yeah.
Now, Sunoco. In cutting for the pipeline out on the Gearhart's property, they cut through the eastern section of their wetland.
Yes.
And cut the hillside directly beside, the western area of the wetland. Trees were literally falling on their wetland delineation signs, their water crossing signs. And, trees were falling into the wetland area. And at any rate, They didn't receive the proper permits from the DEP in order to do a cut like this.
Exactly.
So they have no permits, and they have so much money that I think that they can probably just not really worry about paying the fines. The point here is that they just don't care. They're just going to come in and take the land regardless of permits. Yeah,
and it starts here with the Gerhardt family, and your family could be next, or my family could be next. Now, having said that, Nick, truly, are you having any more rallies that you guys are scheduled that we can get it out on the airwaves and tell people that we need your supports? Because if we show up in numbers, obviously, somebody's got to pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, our friends are going in for their hearings at 8:30 a.m., at the Huntingdon County Courthouse. We are meeting at 8 o'clock. There will be free coffee there provided by the Wildflower Cafe.
Okay.
And, we're stressing that this really remains, sort of a gentle, peaceful protest,
right.
in light of the fact that people are facing jail time. We don't want to be causing too much of a ruckus, but we want to be there. But we want to be there in numbers. We want to pack that. We want to pack that courtroom.
Yeah.
And if there are too many people to fit in the courtroom, we're going to have people outside with signs, and So tomorrow, Wednesday morning, eight to probably about 9 or 9:30 or so.
All right. Well, I'll try to get this interview up on our front page tonight. Matter of fact, this afternoon. That way, we'll also air it again during our show tomorrow, or actually on Wednesday from 10 to noon, as always. But let me ask you this, because, again, Hannah is involved in the peace and conflict studies at Juniata College, so obviously a nonviolent rally. We don't want people showing up, first of all, going off, half-cocked, having really no information why they're there. They need to study this whole debacle, as far as I'm concerned. And, again, I think answers have to be, forthcoming from the judicial system and the enforcement system in Huntingdon County. These people obviously have to have their feet held to the heat. I mean, that's my feeling. And I guess the best way to do it is utilize the media. And you guys have done a great job in getting the media down from Altoona, Johnstown, also the newspaper. And, of course, we'll reach out to the world and the country here on the airnetwork.net. Is there anything you want to leave us with, Nick, as far as what we can do to help out?
Well, I mean, just spread the word. Do the research, too. That's really important is, I spent the last couple of weeks really just spending hours every day reading through other cases, and the more research you do, the more infuriating it becomes, and you see that people have been taken advantage of really all over the country and all over the world by big companies. But inform yourselves, get the word out there. But but at the same time, we got to remain peaceful about this too. I mean, I'm angry. Everybody's angry, but that's not going to help the situation. And in regard to Judge Zanic, we want him to be on our side. We don't want to be enemies in this situation. He's our local judge.
Exactly.
And he's in there for several more years. We want to be friendly. We want him to be with us. We want him to side with the people and not with big industry.
Yeah, because this is probably the first in many cases to come in the years to come here in Huntingdon County, because we are so rich with our heritage, with our land. So, again, Nick, I appreciate your efforts and, of course, the efforts of the grassroots folks. And we wish you the best of luck. What's your hope for the outcome tomorrow for these folks that have to go before, I assume they're going before George Zanic again, right?
They are. They're going up against Zanic tomorrow, and we hope for the best. And hey, thank you for the interview, for getting the information out there. I think the main thing here is that we need to hold people accountable for their decisions. And so that they realize that people are watching and people care, and that we don't want to be taken advantage of.